This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
Have you ever really looked, really looked at a fern leaf?
Sure.
It's kind of a trippy experience if you stare at it long enough. You see the whole big frond, right? And it has this specific jagged triangular shape.
Okay.
But then you zoom in on one of the little branches coming off the side, and it's the exact same shape, just smaller.
Right.
And if you get a magnifying glass and look at the tiny little leaflets on that branch, same shape again.
You're describing self-similarity. That's the definition of a fractal.
A fractal. Exactly. And, usually we associate that concept with chaos theory, coastlines, snowflakes,
Yeah.
math, and nature stuff.
Right.
But today, we are taking that concept and applying it to something significantly denser. We're applying it to the philosophy of G.W.F. Hegel.
Which is a sentence that might make some of our listeners break out in a cold sweat. Hegel has a reputation.
He does. He's arguably the most difficult, most impenetrable philosopher in the Western canon.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to read the phenomenology of spirit in college.
Uh-huh.
I think I made it to page 10 before my brain just shut down.
Yeah. You got further than most.
It felt like reading a user manual for a spaceship written in a language that doesn't exist yet.
Well, here's the hook for this deep dive. Our source material today, a breakdown titled 117 Hegel Philosophy Fractal Structure, argues that we don't need to decode every agonizing sentence.
Oh, thank goodness.
Instead, we just need to look at the shape of his thinking.
The shape.
Exactly. The source suggests that Hegel's entire massive system isn't just a collection of abstract ideas. It's a structural template, a specific hierarchy, a fractal that he just stamps onto everything.
Everything. Like what?
Theology, geography, the university system, and ultimately the state itself.
So it's like a cookie cutter. He has this one specific shape, this three-part pattern, and he just presses it into the dough of history, religion, and politics over and over again.
That is a perfect analogy. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. It shifts our understanding of Hegel from a philosopher of spirit into something much more political and, frankly, much more calculated.
Okay, so that's our mission today. We're going to decode this fractal.
We aren't
parsing German grammar. We're going to trace this pattern from the mind of God down to the map of Europe through a 19th century university and finally land it right on the desk of the Prussian king.
And by the end, you'll see this isn't just history. It's really a masterclass in how institutions, even the ones we live in today, justify their own power.
All right, so let's find the base pattern. If this is a fractal, there has to be an original shape that gets repeated. Where does this thing come from?
It starts surprisingly far back, long before Hegel was even born. The source traces the foundational layer to the 5th century and St. Augustine's The City of God.
Okay, so we're starting with theology. That seems about right, given Hegel started as a theology student.
Precisely. He never really lost that architectural mindset. So Augustine divided reality into 3 distinct realms. This is the prime fractal, if you will.
The first one.
First, you have the heavenly city.
The blueprint in the sky.
Right. The realm of the eternal, the universal, its perfection before time even starts, the unchangeable truth.
Okay. Then you have the earthly city.
Which is where we are now.
The messy part.
It's the fallen world. It's history, change, chance, decay. It's where things get disconnected and broken.
And the third part.
The city of God. But importantly for Augustine, this is the destination. It's the reconciliation. It's where the split between the perfect heaven and the messy earth is healed, and everything gets its final meaning.
So we have a triad. The eternal ideal, the messy reality, and the final synthesis.
Exactly. Now, watch the sleight of hand. Hegel takes this religious sandwich, ideal reality synthesis, and he secularizes it. He keeps the container but changes the ingredients.
He swaps out faith for reason.
He does. In Hegel's system, Augustine's heavenly city becomes logic.
Okay, but we have to be careful with that word, right? Logic for Hegel isn't just winning a debate.
Not at all. It's ontological. It's the structural blueprint of the universe, the mind of God, before nature or humanity were even created.
So that's the thesis, the starting point, the pure code before the program runs.
Then, the earthly city becomes the philosophy of nature. And for Hegel, nature isn't beautiful and harmonious like the Romantics thought. It's actually a degradation of the idea.
A glitch.
It's logic getting lost in matter. It's messy, accidental, and full of pointless details.
This explains why he wasn't a big fan of the empiricists, right? He didn't like getting his hands dirty with bugs and rocks.
Exactly. He thought looking at bugs was looking at the error in the system, not the code. And then the synthesis. The city of God becomes the philosophy of spirit.
Spirit. That's the most famous Hegel word.
It is. This is the holy grail for him. It's where the abstract logic wakes up inside messy nature and realizes, oh wait, I'm actually making sense of myself.
It's the return to unity, but a unity that's now self-aware.
Yes.
Okay, so we have the pattern: logic, nature, spirit, thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
That is the stamp. Now, this is where the source material gets really fun. Hegel takes that little three-part stamp and presses it onto a map of Europe.
The geopolitical layer. This is where the philosophy stops being abstract and starts getting judgmental.
Extremely judgmental. Hegel looks at the major powers of his time, England, France, and Germany, and he decides they aren't just countries, they are stages in the development of the world spirit.
Let me guess. He places his own country, Germany, right at the top.
Spoiler alert, yes. But follow the logic because it fits the fractal perfectly. He assigns England to the slot of nature.
England is the messy material part.
Well, think about what England was in the early 19th century.
Yeah.
The Industrial Revolution, empiricism, utilitarianism. To Hegel, the English mind is obsessed with the physical world.
So they treat the world as an object.
A resource to be used, measured, and traded. It's all about utility. Does it work? Can I sell it? It's powerful, yeah, but it's stuck in the material. It lacks the idea. It's the earthly city of commerce and machinery.
Okay, so that's England. Then he looks at France.
France represents objective spirit.
That sounds like a step up.
It is a step up, but it's a volatile one. France represents abstract rights. The French Revolution tried to impose reason onto the world, liberty, equality, fraternity.
Right, they tried to organize society by pure intellect. Hegel respects that.
He respects the effort, but it was too abstract. It led to the terror. It was reason trying to force reality into a box rather than growing organically out of it. It had the law, but not the deep cultural unity.
So England's too stuck in the mud, and France is too head in the clouds with its abstract rights.
Then enter Germany, specifically Prussia. Germany represents absolute spirit.
The Goldilocks zone. Not too hard, not too soft.
The synthesis. Hegel argues that Germany arrived last. And usually, in a race, being late is bad.
But not in dialectics.
In dialectics, being last is the best position. It means you've watched the other two fail and you've learned from them.
So the argument is we aren't late, we're the final draft.
Exactly. He argues that the German state synthesizes the concrete reality of England with the high ideals of France. Germany represents the state as an organic, ethical whole, the system, the idea made real.
It's incredibly convenient. But it's also, a brilliant rhetorical move.
How so?
He positions his own context as the inevitable conclusion of history. He's not just saying Prussia is great. He's saying the laws of logic demand that Prussia exists.
And that's the power of the fractal. If you accept the pattern logic, nature, spirit, then the conclusion feels mathematical, not political. It feels like 2 + 2 = Germany.
Okay, before we get to the university and the state, which are the really concrete applications here, the source mentions a layer of internal philosophy. This just seems like Hegel throwing shade at his rivals.
Oh, it's absolute academic shade. The fractal repeats inside the history of philosophy itself. He looks at Fichte, a contemporary rival. Fichte is all about the ego, the self, the I.
So Hegel stamps him as
subjective spirit. Good, but incomplete. Too focused on the individual. Kant is tricky. Kant is absolute spirit, but only in a preparatory way. Kant broke his own philosophy into 3 critiques: art, religion, and philosophy.
Right.
Hegel takes that structure and basically says, yes, Kant, you saw the path, but I am the destination.
It's a movement from creating a subject to that subject looking in the mirror and understanding itself.
And that brings us to the most tangible application of this fractal. We've done theology, maps, and philosophy history. Now let's look at where Hegel actually showed up to work every day. The university.
The University of Berlin. I found this part fascinating because it really changes how you view the ivory tower. The source argues that the Prussian university system was structured exactly like Hegel's logic-nature-spirit triad.
It's a mirror image, so start at the bottom, the foundation. In Hegel's time, this was the Faculty of Arts. This corresponds to logic.
Why logic?
Because it's the prerequisite. Before you could become a lawyer or a doctor, you had to go through the Faculty of Arts to learn grammar, logic, the basics of thinking. It's the universal foundation.
Okay. Then we move to nature.
Within that faculty, you had the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, resource studies, again, dealing with the material world, the stuff.
And in spirit.
These are the higher faculties, the professional schools. But here's the twist, and it's a massive power grab by Hegel. traditionally in the medieval university who was at the top of the pyramid.
Theology. It was always theology, the queen of the sciences.
Right. Theology followed closely by law. Philosophy was usually stuck down in the Faculty of Arts. It was a servant discipline. You learned philosophy so you could study the Bible better.
But Hegel flips the fractal.
He inverts the pyramid. In his system, philosophy is elevated. He places the philosophical faculty above theology and above law.
How did he get away with that? You'd think the church and the lawyers, who are powerful people, would lose their minds.
He pulled it off because of the final and most important layer of the fractal, the state. He argued that philosophy wasn't just noodling around with ideas. He argued that philosophy was the only discipline capable of interpreting the state's will.
So he ties his own job security directly to the king.
Intimately. And this brings us to the big one. The source says this map of the state is the most crucial part of the entire analysis. Hegel isn't just writing books. He's writing a justification for the Prussian social order.
He maps the entire population onto this hierarchy.
That little thing.
Let's walk through the caste system of Hegel's fractal state, because it really sounds like a caste system.
It functions like one. At the bottom, at the level of logic, the basic, undifferentiated level, you have the general public.
The masses.
Right. Their role is common sense. They are the raw material of the state. They have feelings, opinions, but they don't have science. They don't see the whole picture. They're just the potential energy.
Okay. Then we step up to nature.
The scientists and technicians. The people who manage resources. Remember England. England was nature and utility.
Right.
In the Prussian state, the technicians are there to handle the material means to an end. They keep the lights on, the bridges standing, the crops growing.
Vital, but not spirit. They are focused on the how, not the why.
Correct. They deal with things, not ideas. Then we move to subjective spirit.
And this corresponds to the educators.
Yes, teachers and professors. Their job is to form the inner self of the citizens, to take that raw material of the public and shape it into something capable of serving the state.
Then objective spirit.
Now we are in the halls of power. These are the civil servants, the bureaucrats, the universal class, as Hegel called them.
Universal class. That sounds very flattering for a guy pushing paper.
Hegel loved the bureaucracy. It's actually quite strange to modern ears, but he believed that unlike a merchant who cares about profit or a peasant who cares about the harvest, the civil servant cares about the state itself.
So their interest is the universal.
Their interest is the universal. They execute the laws. They are the machinery of objective spirit.
So we're climbing the ladder. We have the people, the texts, the teachers, the bureaucrats. Yeah. Who is at the very top? Who is the absolute spirit in the real world?
This is the aha moment. Remember, in the university, Hegel put philosophy above theology.
Right.
In the state, he does the same thing.
Go on.
In the absolute spirit slot, you have religion, represented by the clergy. They handle the conscience. But above them, above the church, is philosophy.
But who represents philosophy in a government? You don't see a department of metaphysics.
No, you don't. In Hegel's mapping, philosophy corresponds to the high officials and, ultimately, the king.
The king is the philosopher.
The king occupies the slot of reason. The source explains this beautifully. In this fractal, the absolute idea, the highest concept in Hegel's logic, the mind of God, isn't some ghost.
That's why.
It is the state's final will.
So when Hegel talks about the self-thinking idea, he's actually talking about the decision-making process.
He's talking about the signature on the decree. Look at the mechanism. A problem arises in the population. Logic. The technicians analyze the physical constraints, nature. The bureaucrats, objective spirit, debate it and formulate policy. But who finalizes it? The king. When the king signs a document, that is the moment the absolute idea manifests in reality. It's the dot on the I, as Hegel put it. The individual who transforms the abstract thought of the state into a concrete action.
That is wild. It takes all this mystical, high-flown language about spirit and God and the absolute, and it turns out he's describing the org chart of the Prussian government.
And validating it. That's the critical point. The source calls this an editing operation. Hegel isn't discovering new facts about the universe. He's taking the existing social order monarchy, class structure, the position of the church, and redescribing it as a logical necessity.
So he's saying to the people, We don't have a king just because of tradition or because he has the biggest army. We have a king because the fractal structure of reality demands a final synthesizer.
Exactly. It turns philosophy into the ultimate tool for the state to justify itself. It tells the citizens, you aren't just subjects, you are necessary components of the absolute spirit. It makes the status quo feel inevitable.
Like gravity.
Like gravity. You can't argue with gravity, and according to Hegel, you can't argue with the state.
It's brilliant in a sort of Machiavellian way.
Yeah?
He elevated philosophy to the top tier of the university by arguing that philosophy is the only thing that can articulate the king's will. He made his own job essential to the monarchy's survival.
It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. The state gets a philosophical shield, and Hegel gets to be the state philosopher. And in doing so, he created a template that institutions have used ever since. This idea that our hierarchy matches the natural order of things.
So let's pivot to the so what then. We are Prussian subjects in the 1820s. Why should a listener today care about Hegel's fractal?
Because we still live in systems that love to justify themselves. We might not talk about absolute spirit, but we talk about the market, or meritocracy, or efficiency.
You know, I can see the fractal in a modern corporation. You have the workers, major resources dealing with the stuff.
Sure.
You have middle management, objective spirit bureaucracy, and then you have the CEO and the board.
And how does the CEO justify their position? They have the vision, the mission.
The vision is the modern absolute idea.
It is. The mission statement is the Hegelian element. It's the story the system tells itself to prove that the CEO should be at the top, not just because they have the capital, but because they possess a higher form of insight that the workers don't.
The CEO is the one who synthesizes all the parts into a whole.
Right. And just like Hegel put the technicians in the nature layer, modern corporations often treat the people who actually make the product as resources, human resources.
Means to an end.
Exactly. While the spirit, the strategy, the brand, the vision is considered the higher reality.
It really makes you question the naturalness of the hierarchies we live in. Hegel's genius was making the Prussian monarchy look like the laws of physics.
And that is the danger and the power of this kind of philosophy. It can make power look like logic. It hides the messy reality of politics behind a veneer of inevitability.
It makes you feel like if you challenge the boss, you aren't just challenging a person, you're challenging reason itself.
Pretty much.
This has been quite the journey. We started with a fern leaf, went to Augustan City of God, traveled through a map of Europe where Germany wins by showing up last, reorganized the university faculty lounge, and ended up watching the king sign a law.
It shows that ideas, even really abstract, difficult ones, have physical geography. They take up space, they build buildings, they sign laws, and they structure our lives.
And they protect the people in charge.
Usually, yes. That's often what reason ends up doing in these systems. It rationalizes the winner.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on, something the source hinted at. If Hegel's philosophy was just a really sophisticated template to justify the order of his time kings, bureaucrats, and almas, what are the structural templates we're using right now?
That is the question. What is the story we tell ourselves today that makes our current inequalities or power structures feel natural?
Is it the algorithm? Is it data-driven decision-making? Are those just our new versions of objective spirit?
Whatever it is, it's probably functioning just like Hegel's fractal, convincing us that the way things are is the only way they could possibly be.
Next time you look at an org chart or a government flowchart, look for the fractal. You might just see Hegel staring back at you. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Keep thinking.
See you next time.
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.